Let's talk about Isaiah chapter 3. Very amazing chapter coming after what we've already covered in 1 and 2. We get over to 3 and God begins to rise as judge. And when God rises as the judge, that sounds scary to a lot of people, and for a lot of people, it probably should be scary. But for those of us who are on the righteous side of judgment, we should be very excited. Hi, Rhonda. Hi, Celinda. Hi, Sherry. It's so nice to have all of you joining me each day. And this is an amazing chapter. I've read it now from the Amplified, from my Spirit-Filled Life, and also from the Passion, and that's the one we're going to cover today out of the Passion. When God rises to judge, behold, Yahweh the Sovereign One, the commander of angel armies, this is one of God's names, commander of angel armies, that would be Jehovah Sabaoth, is about to cut off from Jerusalem and Judah every source of their support and security, including all food supplies and water. And just so you know what that actually means, support and security, and this is if you have your Passion Bible, you should be always reading the commentaries to help you understand the scripture, because sometimes it's written in a culture or a time or a phraseology that doesn't make as much sense to us as it would if you understood the culture. Support and security is a play on words similar to bag and baggage, house and home. It's just talking about the fullness of he will remove their heroes and soldiers, prophets and judges, their fortune tellers and statesmen, their respected military leaders, pillars of the community, their counselors, skilled craftsmen, and those professional charmers. I will make inexperienced youth their rulers, and children will govern them. Everyone will take advantage of everyone else, and neighbor will struggle against neighbor. The youth will not respect their elders, and the dishonorable will sneer at those worthy of honor. One man will even seize a relative right in his father's house and say, "At least you own a coat. You be our leader. You can oversee this heap of ruins." In that day he will cry out, "I have no remedy for this mess. I don't have any food or clothes either, so don't make me your leader." In other words, we'll hit a time frame. Let me get to the end of that section. Jerusalem has stumbled and Judah has fallen because their words and their works are defiant before the face of the Lord's glorious presence. God's glorious presence is to be honored, to be enjoyed. Hi, Karen. Thanks for joining us. The look on their impudent faces says it all, for they publicly flaunt their sin like Sodom. Hi, Marion. Not even trying to hide it. Woe to their souls, for they invite disaster upon themselves. Yet reassure the righteous, it will go well with them. They will fully enjoy the reward of their deeds, but woe to the guilty, for they will get fully what they deserved. My people, mockers exploit you, and creditors rule over you. My people, your leaders mislead you and confuse you with their guidance. I'm going to stop there because that's the first section out of 3 sections in this chapter. Interestingly enough, it basically is saying something that we could apply right now, that we are hearing a lot of different things coming out of our leaders, a very divided leadership in our nation, to the point where it's hard to trust what anyone is saying. And what that should do is run us back to the throne of God. It should run us back to his presence. It should run us back to say, "Father, what are you saying? What is your word saying? What should we be looking for?" And in this instance, it's saying that no one wants to rule the mess that the nation is in. The nation is in such a mess that no one wants to attach their name to it. No one wants to say, "I can do it." Nobody of any wisdom or age or ability that's had any kind of experience wants to get involved. Only the impudent, the young ones with no wisdom want to jump up and say, "Here, I'll do it," when it's going to take real wisdom, just like we're in right now. It's going to take real wisdom to be able to pull this off. Hi, Jan. Thanks for joining us. Now, when I pull up my Spirit-Filled Life Bible, one of the things I want you to notice is it talks about there being a problem with food and water. It talks about there being a real problem with leadership. It talks about there being a real problem with no one wanting to cure or can't cure the ills. Now you get down to verse 10, and this is what I want you to focus on just for a moment. Say to the righteous that it shall be well with you. I'm saying to you, the righteous, it's going to be well with you. So don't let a chapter like this, see it, understand it, grasp the potential of what it means to the nation. But if you're walking righteously with God, it's going to be well with you. No matter what's going on in the economy, you're operating as a citizen of heaven. Your economy will be fine. Hi, Laura. Thanks for joining us. It says, for they, the righteous, shall eat the fruit of their doings. So when you're a tither and you've been doing the right thing, you're a prayer, you're an intercessor, you're standing on the wall, you're doing what God has asked you to do, you're studying, you're learning, you're growing. God says when you do those things, you're going to eat the fruit of that. You're going to eat the fruit of that. Doesn't matter what the rest of the world's having to deal with. It doesn't matter what's going on in the economy or the plague that we're dealing with the pandemic right now, the coronavirus. All that matters is that you keep your righteous standing with God so that your situation is different from others. And this is where we have full control. Sometimes what's going on, I hear a lot of people saying, I just don't know what's going on. I feel so out of control. When you walk in righteousness with God, you are in full control of what God is doing. I want to also point out another verse, verse 8. For Jerusalem stumbled and Judah is fallen because their tongue and their doings are against the Lord. Very important. Hi, Sterling. Thanks for joining. Hi, Karen. Thanks for joining. I want you to understand that what you say today, you will eat the fruit of tomorrow. What you're living in today, you are eating the fruit of what you've said yesterday and last week and last month and even last year, because your words go on and on and on and on. I have never prayed more for a crop failure in things that I have said, things that I really don't want to come to fruition, but the word is very true. You're going to deal with whatever it is you have said, you're going to walk it out and live it out in this time and in this day. Now, the way it reads in the Passion, Jerusalem has stumbled and Judah has fallen because of their words and their works. Both of those things are important. Your being and your doing is important. Being right with God is incredibly important, and your being is what is expressed in your words. So if your words are wrong, check where you're coming from. Are you in God's presence? Because if you're in God's presence, the right thing will be coming out of your mouth. If you are listening more to the world than you are to the word, then the wrong thing is going to be coming out of your mouth. Now let's get on to the next section. The judge in his courtroom. Here is the legal side of God. If you've not read My Women of the Nation Pray, my last book, it's talking about the legal side of God. Yahweh is taking his rightful place in court. That's what verse 13 says. He is rising to judge his people. This is what we want. We want a righteous judgment for us, that righteous revolution revival. We want that because of what it means to us, the righteous people of God. Yahweh comes to issue the guilty verdict of the elders and leaders of his people, those who are not in right standing with him. They're his people, but they're not in right standing. There is a difference. There is a difference. There are people who say they love God, but they're still not in right standing with him because their words and their works are not aligning with his word. You are the ones who have ruined the nation. Your houses are full of what you've stolen from the poor. What gives you the right to crush my people by shoving the faces of the poor into the dirt? Yahweh, the sovereign one, another name for our Lord in Isaiah, commander of angel armies, Jehovah Sabaoth, has spoken. This is a very important section in this chapter because it's dealing with God rising to make things right. Once a righteous judgment has been ordered, then everything must line up with the righteous judgment. So don't look at the word judgment and go, oh no. Just make sure you're on the right side of the judgment, and then all will be well with you. Remember what he said in verse 8 and verse 10 about words, and then what shall the righteous say? All will be well with me. If you are agreeing with me, hi Ruth, all the way from Indonesia, and Cheyenne, Nice to see you too. Listen, if you're in agreement with what the word is saying and you're walking in the righteous side of God, just type in all is well with me. Then you are making a declaration with me in agreement that all is well with you. The next section, cleansing the daughters of Zion. Here is what Yahweh says. The daughters of Zion are proud, walking about arrogantly with their noses in the air. Their eyes are seductive as they skip along with jewelry jingling on their ankles. So the Lord will afflict the foreheads of the daughters of Zion with scabs. Yahweh will make the front of their heads bald in that day. In that day, the Lord will strip away their vanity, their beautiful ankle jewelry, necklaces, crescent pendants, earrings, bracelets, and veils of shimmering gauze. Gone will be their elaborate headdresses and ankle chains, their sashes, sachets, and charms. He will snatch away their signet rings and nose rings, their stately gowns, capes, shawls, cloaks, and purses, hand mirrors, fine linen garments interwoven with gold, purple turbans, and long veils. A stench will take the place of seductive perfumes. A rope will take the place of a sash, baldness for braided hair, rags instead of a fine robe, and the brand of a captive instead of beauty. Your men will fall on the battlefield, and your heroes will die in war. Cries of mourning will be heard at the city gates. With the anguish of such great loss, she will sit down and grieve in the dirt. Wow, that's a rough section, isn't it? And yet, what we should hear in this section is this. For those of you who have gone through School of Worship with me, when I do the teaching out of Acts 15, Rebuilding the Ruins of Worship, and that's the second worship book that once you've gone through school once and you come back the second time, you get Rebuilding the Ruins of Worship book and workbook. You can actually order those from our website. God is rebuilding our worship. This section here that we just read is talking about our worship. Anytime you see the word Zion, it's dealing with us as a church, as a bride, and our worship unto God, how he affects who we are, and how our worship should come from his presence, not to get us into his presence. There were seasons and times and decades gone by, even in my adult life, where we looked for worship songs that took us into the presence of God. But a shift has happened, and we're in a new season. And that new season now is supposed to be the sound of our worship from his presence. Not the sound that gets us into his presence, but we're supposed to be living and dwelling from the inside of his presence, which changes our worship. It changes the way we sound. Now our songs should be sounding like his presence. They should be songs from his presence. Let me see if I can say it this way. Angels are constantly in song. We hear this throughout the scriptures. Angels are singing. Angels are worshiping. Choruses of angels, choirs of angels, myriads of angels singing. But they're not singing to get into God's presence. They're singing because they're in God's presence. They're singing to worship him. They're singing from his presence. And this is the new shift that God is calling for us, to get so in his presence that everything that comes out of us is adorned from the inside, not the outside. And by that adornment, that's why he strips off here in chapter 3, the natural, man-made, what you've dressed yourself with adornments. And he takes us back. Remember when we studied Ezekiel 16, when he found us in our blood, he found us in our filth, he washed us, he cleansed us, and then he starts putting jewels on us. So it's not that he's against jewelry. It's not that he's against adornment. It's not that he's against beautiful hair or clothes or all these beautiful things. He wants to be the one who puts them on us. He wants it to be from his presence that we are adorned with the beautiful things, not that we adorn ourselves to cover our filthiness. He wants us to be adorned, to be a help to show his glory, a way to reflect his glory. We are in a season like no other. We are in a revival season, but it's different than just revival. And those of you who've been following me know I've been saying this. There's a new sound, a new thing that is about to shift into. I believe we are days away from that when Pentecost weekend happens. But I believe this is a part of understanding that. When we understand that we don't worship to get in his presence. We're already in his presence, and we worship because we're in his presence. We worship from his presence. And he's also, in these last few verses in chapter 3, separating those who say, oh, I'm a worshiper, and you get up on Sunday morning or whatever time of the week you get to be on the platform worshiping, but then maybe the night before you were in the bar worshiping, or you were on the stage worshiping, or you were doing something that's secular. He's saying there has to be a separation. And I'm not against secular singing and secular music. I'm just saying that as a worshiper, you are set apart. You are separate. You are holy and righteous and pure. And that changes your tone. That changes your sound. That changes the resonance coming from you. Now you are not just a revivalist, but you're a revivalist with a Renaissance movement. The Renaissance being birthed from the womb instead of birthed from the tomb. Revival means you're reviving can these dry bones live, Ezekiel 37, or rebuilding the ruins of worship. That's all reviving, and we love that, and we want it, and we cry out for it, a righteous revolution revival. We want that revival. But I believe with all of my heart, it's going to be birthed not from the old, but from the new within you that comes from being with Him. That is the sound. That is the place. That is what He's calling you to make, a sound no one's ever heard before. Maybe tones, maybe frequencies, maybe new instruments that God has given you to create. Maybe you're the new instrument that God is creating. Releasing your sound. Stop judging your sound by someone else's sound. Saying, well, I don't sound good enough because I don't sound like so-and-so. You are the exact instrument God wants to be worshiping right now. You're the new instrument, the new sound. This new season calls for a new sound, and your tone and your frequency and your ability, and the marrying of revival and renaissance of the tomb and the womb. Coming from the tomb, we're rebirthing something. Yes, we're calling it back to life, but also something that's never been birthed before, something that's never been heard before. That's why we receive the righteous judgment of God, so that we can just stop being a copy of something old, and we can become something new, some sound that's new within us. So I encourage you today with this chapter to receive the judgment of God. Take it. Say, God, judge me. I want you to judge me with your fire. Burn me up. There's a shift that is almost here. We are days away from a shift. And if you don't get with that shift, you're going to miss it. And you're going to still be trying to recreate something old when God has shifted us into the new. Thanks for joining me today. Chapter 3 is amazing. Read it over and over and over. Read it in many different translations if you can. And I just want to say, as I said up on just a little short part of my story, this is our daughter Gabrielle's 27th birthday today, and so we wish her a happy birthday in heaven. Wish we could be with her, but we're going to finish this race and have a sound that God is creating. I want to be in on the new. I don't want to become a monument to the old. I want to be in on the new. I don't want to look back and turn to something old, but I'm looking forward, for Gabrielle is in my future. She's not a little 6-year-old girl anymore. She's 27 years old, living in my future in eternity, and we're running that direction. So I love you with all of my heart. I pray this is a blessing to you. I'm asking, if you are not already a partner with our ministry, I know many of you already are, that you pray about that, helping us during this season. Even though some churches have already begun back, we have been canceled as evangelists and traveling revivalists and Renaissance new sound people. We don't yet have dates on the calendar until Father's Day. And so I'm asking that you partner with our ministry if you believe that God is leading you that way. Only do what He is leading you to do. And order product from our ministry. If you've not yet downloaded the School of Worship, please do so. I heard from Ruth in Indonesia. She said that School of Worship, those 13 sessions, is holding her in position. That's what Colby also said, that they hold you in position, the ground that you've taken, or if you've never gone before. It would be a blessing to you. If you've not yet gone through We Worship and the book and the workbook, you need to start there. Go through that, dealing with your heart, getting your heart in right position so that this new sound can come forth. This will probably be my last time coming from this prayer chair. My husband's given me this beautiful office area he's made for me so that I can pray without interruption. And so if I get moved all the way out there tomorrow, I'll come from there. I love you all. Appreciate you. Mwah, you're special, special, special to me. SalemFamilyMinistries.org is our website. You can find us there too. You're precious. See you tomorrow with chapter 4.